All right, in this week's episode, we're in Kansas with Derik Jones. Derik has filmed with Midwest Whitetail, the Chasing November project, and the hunting public. He's killed a pile of big Kansas bucks and actually killed his biggest buck to date this past fall. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go.
Welcome to my house. I'm Derik Jones. This is my home. I guess what you want to see is some whitetails. So I've got a mule deer here on the wall, which is fine too. You guys probably want to see that, but this is the deer that I shot day before rifle season here in Kansas this year. Not much of a story on him. I had pictures of him from October, the first pull. Just never had an opportunity until crunch time last day, and rifle season was coming in the next day, so I was blessed with an opportunity to him. So this is a mule deer I shot out in northwest Kansas with a buddy of mine in 2018 archery during muzzleloader season, and my first experience with spot and stock hunting. And tell you guys, if you've never done it, do it. It's awesome. But I display my turkey fans just like I do my deer. I'm real proud of them. Every hunt's unique, different. So got some sheds up here too. This is actually a deer I killed back in 2015. Got his rack out in the garage. I'll show you guys later, but pretty crazy how that story panned out. But anyway, got a Wyoming Merriam right there. Picture with my son Drake. That was the first turkey hunt he went with me on. That was pretty awesome. More pictures of kiddos. Come into my wife and I's room, the master bedroom. This is the only full shoulder mount that I have in the house. Wife isn't a big fan of them, but it's on her side of the bed, so she gets to wake up and look at it every morning. So this deer is actually pretty darn special for me, Josh, Matt, and TJ, and Josh Whitehill. We all kind of started filming together back in 2008, 2009. We really got into it 2010, which is 2010 is when this guy was harvested. Josh Tatum was actually filming me, and we had I think it was talking to the guys earlier, is like a GL2, like a Canon GL2 standard definition. But once we saw him, I gave him a few soft grunts, came to the fence line, and the rest was history. And that hunt was pretty darn special. It's a big 8-point, biggest 8-point I've ever harvested. I got more stuff out in the garage. If you guys want to follow me out to the garage, I got lots more to show you. More deer, some more turkey fans, more stories. So I'm gonna go check them out. So yeah, there's plenty of storage in here. I work for a living, obviously, like everybody else, but I work for myself. I own my own business. I do some handyman work, small construction. So a lot of my tools are in here, all my hunting gear. But this is kind of my designated hunting corner. And a lot of these deer that you see here, if I mention they're on film, it's back from my Midwest Whitetail days, back when Matt and Josh and Whitehill and TJ and I we always sent our film into Midwest Whitetail. Through that time, we became really good friends with Aaron Warbritton and Greg Clements. They were producing our show. They were our contact back in Iowa. And so we became really good friends with them. And when they started their new venture called the Hunting Public, we were excited to join, give them all of our footage. So from this point forward, although I haven't been fortunate enough to get a deer kill on film since they've started Hunting Public, probably seen a few of my turkey hunts on there, but that's the correlation. We're glad to be a part of the Hunting Public and help them guys out. They're good friends of ours. So some of my better sheds are hanging up beside the deer up here. This is actually a deer that was on Midwest Whitetail back in the Midwest Whitetail days, 2013. Josh and I were just talking about that. This is a day that we actually doubled up. That morning, this guy came in on Josh and I, and I couldn't make up my mind on him. He kind of came through the opening quick, was on a mission, didn't give me a whole lot of time to judge him, grabbed my bow. Josh was kicking me in the butt saying, "You should have shot that deer. I don't know what you were thinking, but nice deer." And so we tried to calling sequence, tried to get him to come back in, never saw him. Probably within less than an hour, here come a doe right in the opening, and I could just see sun shining off of antlers coming through the cedars on that property. And it was the same buck that just passed by us. So he gave me a quartering to 25-yard shot, made it count, recovered him, got him to the locker, went and did a hanging hunt with Josh, and Josh shot a really nice 10-pointer or 9-pointer that night. So these two right here, the left one was actually shot on that property in 2014, the year after I shot this 8-pointer. That deer was on Midwest Whitetail. Josh was filming me again. But one of the coldest mornings I have ever sat in a stand. We had a big cold front come through, and it was, I don't know what the temps were that morning. I think it was in the teens, which here in Kansas, you don't get very many mornings in the teens in November. So, yeah, the deer were really moving that day. The thing that sticks out on that hunt more to me than anything, other than the cold, was the vocalizations that we heard. It was on that property that I call the Cedar Patch. Really thick cover. You don't see deer unless they're on top of you. But it sounded like somebody was driving a daggum truck through the cedars. Like, it was so much commotion. I didn't know what was going on. All I heard was a bunch of cedar trees, limbs breaking and grunting. I just kept looking at Josh, and I had the grunt call in my hand, trying to vocalize with whatever was going on, trying to bring it out in sight. And one time they'd grunt and they'd be to my left, and the next time they'd be to my right. And Josh and I were trying to coordinate, where he was going to come out, because I had to switch sides in my stand. That deer came out. All I saw were tines, long tines. Didn't take long to make up my mind. So that was a pretty cool hunt. The one to the right of that one, that was shot out of a hay bale blind on a food plot on a property that I used to have. And it's actually that shed that I was talking about on my mantle. It was real close to my buddy TJ's house. And so he found that shed. I killed him the next year, and it was a hay bale blind hunt. So it's the first deer I'd ever shot on the ground. Josh Tatum was filming me again on that one, and came in following a doe into a food plot, made a marginal shot, got liver on him. We gave him 4 hours, came in that night, did not find him, found where he bedded 3 or 4 different times, found my arrow, and then we called off the search. We didn't know if we were bumping him, didn't know what was going on. So TJ and I came back the next morning, found him 30 yards from where I shot him. He'd made a big loop, died in the creek bed, 30 yards from where I shot him. That's a really cool story, really mature buck, just a massive, narrow 10-pointer. That deer means a lot to me, obviously. And then the final deer that I'm going to talk about that you see up there is the deer that TJ killed in 2018. I was filming him, and that deer came by running a doe. It was 2 small bucks, and then this guy following a doe and 2 fawns, and that doe was coming into heat, obviously, in November 4th, 5th. TJ got that deer. That's the last deer that TJ took before he passed, and so obviously I was with him, so his wife was generous enough to say that you could house that deer until her or her girls wanted it back. So it's here in my garage. I tell a lot of people about that story. It sticks in my mind. It's pretty special to me. All right, well, we made it over here to my mom and dad's house, and I just want to stop by here and show you a couple more deer. Great stories with all 3 of these deer behind me. I guess I'll start with this one, because this is basically November 21st, 2007, I think. This would have been my first archery buck. Really cool deer. I was hunting another deer, but this one came in 3 times on me, and I finally had enough. And I shot him right before Thanksgiving that year and called Josh. My dad was there on the recovery, so this was a special deer to me. And actually, Josh Tatum and I actually mounted this deer together. It didn't turn out all that great. We were pretty fresh. We had a little guidance from his dad, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's really cool deer. I'm pretty proud of it. So we'll move right along here to, this is a deer that I shot, I believe, in 2012. Josh was gracious enough that we were both hadn't tagged out yet. So he said, you know what, I've got this new property, we'll both go in there. He says, I'll hunt the morning, and then you can hunt that afternoon. So I said, deal. So I filmed him in the morning. He shot a doe right at first light. Ended up didn't see anything the rest of the day, so we got her cleaned up, got some cameras charged, climbed right back up in the stand, and this was, I believe, November 29th, and I think it was the Tuesday before rifle season started. So rifle season starts in Kansas every year on a Wednesday. It's the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And so rifle season came in the very next day, and this deer was snort wheezing other smaller bucks off of a doe, came in dogging the doe, and just got extremely lucky. I was in kind of a funnel in this back pasture. I mean, you've seen Josh shoot deer out of this same area all the time, but it's in that big hillside, big open pasture. But I didn't call to him. I didn't do anything. He just the doe happened to work perfectly. Just came in right under the stand, looped around, and stood around there. And then I was at full draw, I think, for like 3.5 minutes on him. We have a timer on it. You can see the hunt on Midwest Whitetail, but it was over 2.5 minutes. I do remember that. I don't remember the exact time, but anyway, he finally came out, 15-yard shot, double lunged him. He ran 40 yards, died right on camera. So it's a great hunt. I was very humbled that Josh would let me hunt his property and be able to take a buck of this caliber. This will go back to this deer here. I don't really have a name for him, but it's kind of a unique story, and it comes back to that first buck down here that I showed you. The year that I shot that deer, I had stuck another deer in the shoulder. He'd finally given me a shot opportunity, and I put it through a basketball-sized hole through the trees. Obviously didn't get any penetration. It wasn't a fatal hit, just a flesh wound. So felt bad, looked for the deer for the rest of the day. Deer was still alive. Called off the search. Fast forward to the next spring, summer, put out the trail cameras, started getting this deer, didn't think anything of it. Small rack, injury to his right shoulder, right leg. Anyways, rifle season 2009. So Josh was filming, we went out there. Here comes this gimpy buck, limping, holding his right leg up, barely, and it was all balled up on his hoof. So we kind of just assumed he'd got hit on the highway. You know, we weren't hunting but a quarter mile from the highway. Anyway, I ended up shooting the deer. Deer came in. I shot him, found him. It wasn't probably till about 6 months later I'm like, hey, I wonder if that's that same deer. And it was. It was the same deer that I'd shot 2 years prior in the shoulder. I got a second chance at him. He became a nicer deer than he was the year before. He was inside his ears, real short-tined. Just that injury he had put a lot of stress or a lot of energy to get that healed back up. Well, the year I got him, he had put all his energy back in his antlers. His wound was still there, but he had learned to adjust, and he was still in that home range that he didn't go far, probably because of the injury. And I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity at him. And didn't make the best shot, but we found him, and here he is. So I guess we can call him the gimpy buck or the second chance buck, redemption buck, whatever. But it's a good story, and this is a deer that Josh mounted for me. Looks great. So maybe one of these days I'll have a big enough house that these can come back in my house. But